how that relates with the world around us. We just have to listen.
Wordsworth pressed the reset button on poetry. He was a radical. In previous decades, poetry had been about the intellect. Romanticism was poetry of the heart rather than the mind, celebrating the miracle of ordinary life.
I turned to Wordsworth for solace, to lift my heart, to restore a sense of wonder in nature. He saw in nature a kind of healing spirit, an environmental vision about what nature brings to us, which is very important nowadays as we think about how we are failing the planet.
William had a very deep friendship with his sister Dorothy. Two creative minds at work at the same time. You get a real sense at Dove Cottage of the joy they took being able to share everything, that their life and their poetry were inseparable.
Wordsworth really is a poet who you can grow up with. The poetry can speak to you when you're in your 70s or when you're 17. The two words that come up again and again are joy and love. We could all do with as much of that as possible in our lives, and I think the poems offer it.
Once on the brow of yonder hill, I stopped, while I was yet a schoolboy. Within the bounds of this huge concave, here should be my home, this valley be my world.
William and his younger sister Dorothy were born less than 20 miles from Dove Cottage, but were separated as children following their mother's death. After many years away from the area, they settled here in Grasmere in 1799, when William was just 29 years old.
We were young and healthy, and had attained an object long desired. We had returned to our native mountains, there to live.
It was during these first years, exploring the landscape together, that William wrote most of his best-loved poems, and Dorothy kept her Grasmere journal.
The earth is all before me. With a heart joyous, nor scared at its own liberty, I look about. And should the guide I choose be nothing better than a wandering cloud, I cannot miss my way.
Over the previous decade, William had been uplifted by the promise of the French Revolution, but disillusioned with the failure of such political attempts to create a fairer society. So he'd come to Grasmere to live close to nature and devote his life to poetry.
To choose incidents and situations from common life, and to relate or describe them in a selection of language really used by men.
Encouraged by his friend and collaborator Samuel Taylor Coleridge, William further developed as a poet, including work on an epic poem on man, nature and society.
I pray God to give me life to finish these works, which I trust will live and do good.
For much of their first year in Grasmere, William and Dorothy were joined by their younger brother John.
We walked through the wood. We are daily more delighted with Grasmere and its neighbourhood. John and I left William to compose. We had a very fine walk by the gloomy lake.
William and Dorothy would have to say farewell to John in the autumn, when he returned to his duties as captain of an East India Company ship.
Poor fellow, my heart was right sad.
Over time, William and Dorothy named many local places after family, weaving themselves into the landscape.
We went to John's grove. William heard me breathing and rustling now and then, but we both lay still and unseen by one another.
She gave me eyes, she gave me ears, and humble care, and delicate fears.
William and Dorothy frequently encountered people while walking, and this would often inform and inspire their writing.
We met an old man almost double. His trade was to gather leeches, but now leeches are scarce, and he had not strength for it.
When I began to inquire, to watch and question those I met, and held familiar talk with them, the lonely roads were schools to me. There soar into the depth of human souls.
Our house is literally and truly a cottage. A little low-roofed building with its entrance through the kitchen. It's quite large enough for us, though very small, and we have made it neat and comfortable within doors. We have a small orchard and a smaller garden, which, as it is the work of our own hands, we regard with pride and partiality.
The siblings would spend these first 8 years in Grasmere, living here at Dove Cottage, and would go on to live the rest of their lives within a few miles. Dorothy's journal offers us an insight into this uniquely creative period, and a way of life that a guest would later describe as plain living and high thinking.
William had slept badly. While we were at breakfast, with his basin of broth before him untouched, he wrote the poem to a butterfly. The thought first came upon him as we were talking about the pleasure we both always feel at the sight of a butterfly.
But she, God love her, feared to brush the dust from off its wings.
I wrote it down, and the other poems, and I read them all over to him. He began to try to alter the butterfly, and tired himself.
William and Dorothy were not living in isolation. Neighbours and friends often visited the cottage.
Mr. Simpson came in at dinner time, drank tea with us and played at cards. A poor woman from Hawkshead begged. I could not help thinking that we are not half thankful enough that we are placed in that condition of life in which we are.
Coleridge had moved to Keswick to be near the Wordsworths and was a frequent guest at Dove Cottage.
We sat and chatted till 3:30, William in his dressing gown. Coleridge read us a part of Christabel.
There would be many other notable visitors, including a young admirer, Thomas de Quincey, who lived here as a writer after the Wordsworths left.
Baked bread and giblet pie, put books in order, mended stockings, put aside dearest Coleridge's letters, and now we are all sitting by a nice fire, William with his book and a candle, and Mary writing to Sarah.
Mary Hutchinson, a childhood friend, would become Mary Wordsworth in 1802, when she married William and joined the siblings to live in Dove Cottage.
A perfect woman, nobly planned to warm, to comfort and command, and yet a spirit still and bright with something of an angel light.
Within a couple of years, Dove Cottage would become their first family home.
No one who has not been an inmate with children in a cottage can have a notion of the quietness that takes possession of it when they are gone to sleep.
Coleridge's illness and imminent departure from Malta in 1804 stimulated focus from William on what was to become his greatest work, the Prelude.
I've been very busy this last 10 weeks, having written between 2,000 and 3,000 lines on my own early life.
In 1805, news would reach Dove Cottage of their brother John, who tragically died at sea.
The meek, the brave, the good was gone. He who had been our living John was nothing but a name.
We are crammed in our little nest, edge full. Every bed lodges 2 persons at present.
1806 saw the arrival of William and Mary's third child.
I cannot but admire the fortitude and wonder at the success with which he has laboured in that one room, common to all the family, to all visitors, and where the children frequently played beside him.